Hello YouTube, this video is my view on the coverage regarding Tony Benn's passing a few months back. I think that the BBC as well as ITV and Channel 4 have not had an objective analysis of his viewpoints and what he stood for and the impact that he made upon British politics. He was probably one of the greatest orators of our time, following on from Michael Foot and various other left-wing politicians. But I think that the coverage which has been shown on the BBC, especially the documentary Labour's Lost Leader, was biased. I don't think it was majorly biased, but it was definitely biased because they had this was due mainly to personalities such as Shirley Williams and Roy Hattersley and Neil Kinnock being included, and only Chris Mullin was the only Bennite who was included in the documentary. Roy Hattersley at the end of the video said everything that he achieved, everything that he pushed for, was for his own self-aggrandisement. I mean, what a thing to say. That's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I saw Tony Benn once at the Methodist Hall in London a few years back, and he delivered a fine speech, and I clapped away like Billy-O, because I think that the way he delivered the speeches should be an example to every politician, and the conviction that he showed, even though he probably had members of the establishment telling him, Tony, what are you doing? Trying to fiddle with the Labour Party, trying to change the rules. Well, now members of the Labour Party now agree that it was right for him to allow the leader to be elected by the members. I mean, for the MPs to vote the leader in today would be unthinkable. So there are many achievements that he conceived at the time, especially during the 70s and 80s. I mean, you could state that bringing 20% of the oil under public ownership was an achievement. I mean, if you look at Norway nationalised their oil decades back, and now they're one of the richest countries in the world. I mean, they have high taxation, but their wages are very high as a result anyway, due to the success of their economy and the sovereign wealth fund that they set up, which diverts money into public services which need funding. I mean, all the oil revenues during the Thatcher era in the 80s were trickled away and trickled abroad, and it was billions and billions of pounds. And Tony Benn's opposition to the Iraq War and Afghanistan, I think, was a precedent to the large movements such as the People's Assembly and where he was president of the Stop the War coalition. I mean, it's just marvellous achievements. A million people marching in London. I don't know many people who could achieve that. I don't know many modern politicians who could achieve that. And moving further back, he created one of the most important pieces of legislation. He helped push for the Peerage Act, 1963, where he was able to renounce his peerage because he wasn't able to sit in the House of Commons, a hereditary peerage. And just to dispel some myths, he was not part of the aristocracy in the same sense as, say, for instance, the royal family or the Duke of Westminster. His grandfather John Benn was a clerk, and his father was given a hereditary peerage by the Liberal government, and he then crossed the floor to the Labour Party, and they all moved left when they got older, and Tony Benn followed in that example. But I think one of the major nickels I've got with the coverage of Tony Benn is the fact that they're just displaying it as, oh, it was a failures, oh, his whole career was tarnished with failures. But to serve under 2 cabinet ministers and to have the public and popular support of his views later on in life, especially with his one-man shows, or people who once would have demonised him, voters who would have once demonised him, supported his views. And I don't think that his views are so marginal. I think that the public does have support for some of these. I mean, you look at some of the views that he espoused in the 80s: minimum wage, women's rights, equal pay for women, statutory rights to have for workers to have cooperatives in their firms. You know, a wealth tax, mansion tax. I think these are policies which the public would support now. I mean, even the Lib Dems are trying to push for, some members of the Lib Dem party are trying to push for a mansion tax now. And I think, you know, the achievements that could have been made through those policies, I think it was rather a loss that the public did not take the leap and go for those policies. Now that's just my opinion. You can post as many comments as you want, and keep it nice and civil. But yeah, I'd like for you to post your opinions on this, and I shall post another video in due course.